What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel. Special guest today, Steven Nelson, part of the Los Angeles Dodgers broadcast team. Steven, you survived the haunted hotel in Milwaukee, so congratulations. You made it home. You doing all right?
Yes, that's my second time staying in the Pfister Hotel there in Milwaukee. The first time I stayed on the old side, which is known as the haunted side. This time I was on the newer side,
Okay.
so no problems. But here's the thing: I'm very much a believer in ghosts. So when I was doing a Facebook watch game there in 2018 or something like that, and so we get into the hotel late at night. And I said, I walked in, I was like, hi, everybody. This is your room. I'm here for one night. I mean, no harm. I've loved what you've done with the place. So please don't smother me in my sleep. And I had a wonderful stay. But I didn't have to worry about that this time or getting my own Airbnb.
Yeah.
I can't afford that like Mookie can.
Yeah, I just said I liked Mookie's approach of I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm also not about to find out that I'm wrong at this
Correct.
hotel. And if I was Mookie and I could afford it, I'd be in an Airbnb. I would have been right there with him.
Totally. I mean, again, if you got that cash to burn, then I understand using some of it on avoiding paranormal activity. You know what was interesting about this? So Clayton was actually on the haunted side for the very first time in his career. So I was anxious, nervous for him to see how he would look in his start. It turns out, ghost or no ghost, he's still the GOAT.
Yeah. Were there any guys that were like especially into it? Like I feel like a guy like Gonsolin, there seems like some guys that I could see being kind of like into the ghost thing.
You know what? I didn't hear anybody say, yeah, my haunted room is awesome. But I also didn't investigate. So now you're giving me something to ask next time I'm around the cage.
Yeah, that's good. It'd be good material on the, on the next broadcast,
Totally. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that Dontrell and I didn't get into that because we were, none of the games were especially close. I mean, the second one kind of got there toward the end, but we were generally like one side off the rails the whole time, but we never got into the ghost conversation. And I regret that because I'm sure D-Train would have had some ridiculous opinions on it that would have made the viewers happy. But so that's on me. That's on me. Right. Next time I'm in Milwaukee, I won't make the same mistake.
Well, I think they're going. I don't know if you're doing Tampa. I hear there's another haunted hotel on the agenda. So
I am doing the Tampa Bay road trip, but we are not staying in that particular hotel. Okay. I have stayed there before. It didn't give me the same vibes as the Pfister, though.
Okay.
I am aware of the history. I think it's called the Vinoy, and it's really close to the Trop. But I don't. From what I have been told, we are not staying there this time.
Well, kudos to Joe. Joe just avoids all of the haunted. Like he hears about the haunted trips, and he's like, "Yeah, Steven can do those. Steven can have those road trips, I guess."
You're the first person to point that out, and now I have to ask him if he's scared of ghosts because there might be something there.
There you go. There you go. Well, hey, if folks are new to your story, I love the fact that we've done this conversation, but this is our first time since you're the part of the Dodgers broadcast team. If people are unfamiliar, local kid, Southern California, went to Chapman for college, kind of climbed the broadcast ladder. You do AHL hockey. You're a sports anchor in Eugene, Oregon, MLB Network, Apple TV. Now you're part of the broadcast team for the Dodgers. And I'll get into the story of kind of how it happened. I'm just curious for you, like, what goes through your mind every time someone says, hey, this is Steven Nelson. He's one of the announcers for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. It might take a few years for that to sort of feel real because it did come up out of nowhere, this opportunity. It was not on my radar. The last time we talked, I think we had finished last year doing the Apple games, and we had bought a house. My wife and I, we had bought a house in New Jersey. We thought we were going to be at MLB Network for the foreseeable future, and then boom, the Dodgers reach out, and it's like, what is happening?
Yeah,
why are they reaching out? Do they want to talk to a friend that I like? Do I know somebody that they actually want to hire? So, look, growing up in Southern California, I feel like I have a really strong appreciation for the broadcast history in this sports town, right? No matter the organization, you know, you have Vin Scully, Jaime Jarrín for the Dodgers. You know, if you grew up a Lakers fan like we did, you grew up loving Chick Hearn. If for some reason you like the Clippers, why I don't know, but you had Ralph Lawler, and then the great Bob Miller doing the Kings game. So all the way around, you could turn on any sport and you'd have a front row seat to broadcasting greatness, you know? And so now to be part of that, I'm not cut from that cloth, but you know, I'm wearing the same colors. Yeah. So to in a sense, to be part of that, I want to stress that to fans. I'm not putting myself in that echelon. But just to kind of follow in those footsteps is pretty surreal. And again, something I don't take lightly at all. It's something every day I wake up and go to work and have a huge amount of respect for the responsibility that comes with this role. So it's been really cool. The organization has been first class and top to bottom all the way. It's been a really, really, really amazing transition.
Well, and it's like the interesting thing is you saying, hey, I'm not putting myself in that echelon. And yet the Dodgers clearly sought you out and said, we understand the gravity of sitting in this chair, and they believed in you enough. Walk me through that process. Like you said, you know, like, why are you calling me? Like, how does it get from a phone call to you to the announcement of, hey, this guy's part of the broadcast team now?
They actually slid in the old DMs.
Love it. So always check your DMs, right?
Always, yeah. And you know, I am very streaky when it comes to the Bird app. I try to avoid too much time on there, and so it was really just like happenstance. I happened to see a new one pop up, and it was a member of the Dodgers front office, and that led to a phone call. And the question was, would you be interested in joining the Dodgers broadcast team? And I think I asked, is that rhetorical? Because truth be told, it was a stupid question. Of course, I was like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, you know, with Joe's growing national profile, just as a fan of a follower of the business, I had anticipated something like this happening for the Dodgers, but I did not anticipate me being a candidate for it. So it was a lot of conversation. Again, you know, we had started to put roots down there on the East Coast. My wife's a broadcaster in the news industry, and you know, her job is out there, and didn't have any plans to leave the network. So it was a couple months of sort of kicking around the pros and cons, just from a personal standpoint. Professionally, you know, makes all the sense in the world, and ultimately, my wife was like, you got to go. We have to go. We're going to be back around your family. You're going to work for one of the greatest organizations in all of sports. And so every box is checked for us to say yes here. And again, it wasn't a quick process. It was a thorough one. And ultimately we came to the decision that we were coming home.
Love it. I love it. Well, and then you have the moment, the first opening weekend, you have the moment with Orel Hershiser where you've got the ball that's signed. And if I'm remembering right, your mom got the ball signed for you, but the ball is signed to you. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So my mom and I were trying to remember the exact date. Either way, I was like 3 or 4, and it was a charity event in Los Angeles. And you know, my mom worked in downtown LA growing up, and my dad's a huge sports fanatic, and I was kind of following in those footsteps as a sports fan. And so, she took the ball up to Orel and said, hey, would you sign this for my son? And Orel did. And so I had the ball like my entire life. It was Orel Hershiser, and it was Ernie Banks, those two balls right next to each other on my mantle. And so once this job popped up and I knew that I was going to get to sit next to Bulldog on opening weekend, I was like, I got to bring the ball to him. Like, I have to. And our producer, Mike Levy, was like, yeah, absolutely. And so there was a moment there. They generally come on camera there in the 7th inning at some point. And And Orel, again, this is just speaks to he signed a billion baseballs in his life,
Yeah.
right? So, but he doesn't know the impact that little scribble has on the people he signs it for. Whether it's me, he has a story about Skip Schumacher, now the manager of the Marlins. So Skip came up to him when he was a player, or Orel went up to introduce himself when Skip was a player, and Skip's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And Skip reminded him of a similar story, and so you can only imagine how many people have a memory like that when it comes to Orel. So now to call him a friend and a broadcast partner here is stupid, and it's been a ton of fun to sit next to him.
Well, and it was interesting to me because I'm going through the list of you kind of forget who Orel Hershiser is and who he was as a player. And then you go down the list of all the people. I mean, Dontrelle Willis was a phenom. You've got Jessica Mendoza, who's got a gold medal. You've got Eric Karros, who's a legend for the Dodgers. Nomar Garciaparra, a huge deal for two of the biggest franchises in the whole sport. The Dodgers broadcast group that you sort of walked into is a pretty ridiculously loaded. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but you look around at some of the other broadcasts and you kind of have to be like, oh, right. I think I remember this guy who's sort of a journeyman or a role player. The Dodgers, right. It's all of these former All-Stars, or in Jessica Mendoza's case, a two-time gold medalist. It's a crazy group to be a part of.
The thing that I like most about it is that they're all different styles too, all of us, whether it's the analysts or Joe and myself. And we talked about this before, how broadcasting is very subjective. And so, some fans, they like one style and one style only. For me, I really enjoyed different experiences. And I think when you're able to mix and match all these pieces, that creates that every time out or every series. And so to be a part of that and kind of encourage that is something I really cherish and look forward to. I worked with Orel the first 13 or so games, then I got to do a series with D-Train, and it was a massively different experience, but equally fun. And so that's what I think we're all trying to do, no matter who we're sitting next to.
Yeah. One last broadcast question, then I do want to ask you about the Dodgers, but you kind of hinted at this. You have Joe Davis. You come in. You guys are different. In the same way that everybody's different. It's not good or bad. It's just different. Has it been a challenge for you to kind of just be yourself, or have you felt the pressure to kind of be different because of the people that are either have been in the chair before you? How does that play out personally for you?
No, honestly, it's made it easier for me, okay. Jeff. No, just knowing who I am and just being at peace with that has just allowed me to be especially free. Look, Joe has become a friend of mine over the past couple of years, just getting to know each other in the game of baseball. And I obviously watch his work and listen to his work. He is the voice of the sport for a reason. He is as close to broadcasting perfection as I think you can find. And he works hard at that. That polish is not an accident. He doesn't just roll out of bed and it happens that way. That's him. I'm very much not that. And I think last year when you and I were talking about the Apple games, at that point I was trying to be something or somebody that I wasn't, right? I knew all the outside noise was really loud in a negative sense. And so I was trying so hard to be that perfect broadcaster as the season went along, and it turned into professional quicksand for me. I was trying hard to not make mistakes, and I was making more mistakes, really silly mistakes. And I think back and I'm like, how did that happen? And I think it was because I was just holding on too tight, to use that other cliche. And so coming into this role, really had I would say a mental breakthrough in the off season, just kind of reset. There's the dog barking that we were talking about. So anyway, this offseason just sort of had a personal breakthrough in just understanding that I wanted to get back to being me. And it was made easier knowing that I was going to be working next to Joe. So it was okay, I'm not going to be that, can't be that. I'm not going to try to be that. So I'm just able to sort of let it go. And look, I understand that fans that have gotten used to Joe on the heels of Mr. Scully, like, that is what they're not only used to anymore, but that's what they like. That's what they love to hear.
Yeah.
And so now they're having to do that again. And it's, not an easy transition for everybody, but I'm hopeful that with time, I can earn some stripes with those folks, and again, create a different experience, but an equally as enjoyable one.
Well, I told you this before. I think you do a great job. I think you've accomplished all the things you set out to accomplish, and we're lucky as Dodgers fans to have not just an A team of Orel and Joe, but the guys that come in behind, the girls that come in behind, Kirsten, Jessica, etc. Like, the whole crew is. It's in some ways it's very much like the Dodgers on the field, where it feels like the backups for the Dodgers are better than most people's like A team. I'm saying that, you don't have to say that. I'm saying that, but it feels like that as a Dodgers fan. On MLB TV, you can listen to different broadcasts. Sometimes I'll just mess around and be like, okay, what's the Brewers broadcast sound like? Or fill in the blank, whatever the team is, and it just makes me appreciate you and Dontrell and Eric and Jessica and all those people, because I think Dodgers fans we're spoiled, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I'm generally awful at compliments, because again, I have such a low view of myself. But I always maintain that I appreciate you for being so encouraging of that. And I do agree. Like, I'm really proud of the team that I've jumped into. I'm just like playing double dutch here, like behind the scenes crew too, like in the truck. Mike Levy's the best in the business as a producer, and so I'm just trying to get on the same side of the rope, because I people in this business, like, it's such an individual thing, and it breeds ego and self-importance, and I hate it because it's a disease. So I've always maintained that love I've had since I was a kid of team sports and being a part of a team. And it's like I want Joe to continue to be the best of the best. I want Orel, you know what I mean? Or Kirsten, whatever. I just want everybody to succeed. And then when it's my turn to play a role, whether it's, filling in for Hartung on pre and post, or filling in for Joe on the broadcast, then I just want to hop in there and kind of continue that tradition. So it's a great team, and again, honored to be a part of it.
Love it. Well, let's talk a little bit of Dodgers on the field. I'm curious, as somebody who kind of was covering from a national perspective, MLB Network, has anything surprised you now that you're kind of under the hood in Los Angeles? I mean, I'm sure you heard stories about what the Dodgers were like. Has anything positively or negatively surprised you about kind of the team, the organization, the front office, that kind of thing?
No, I think the last time we talked, Jeff, I told you that they're the two best organizations in baseball, the Dodgers and the Rays, right? And we discussed, from a baseball ops perspective, why that is, and the ties between the two that are obvious with Andrew Friedman. And so getting to meet the baseball ops staff and the coaching staff, I've obviously known Doc for a few years now. Nothing has surprised me. What has been, I wouldn't say a surprise, but just an awesome experience, is seeing how every single part of the organization is the same. Whether it's our PR squad or even our HR. Lynn and HR is unbelievable. And I'm not blowing smoke. I told her this. I was like, this is the most personal experience I've ever had with human resources in my life. And so all that to say that the Dodgers in every aspect are first class. And that's something Jose Mota told me after I took the job. He's like, you're going to find out really quick. There's the big leagues and there's the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just one of those organizations that are a little bit different in all the best ways. And he was 100% right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, on the field, this team has kind of given us two different versions. We saw the 500 baseball version for the first 2 or 3 weeks. There was panic in the streets because of what we were used to. And then the last couple weeks, they're on an absolute tear. Do you think the real Dodgers are somewhere in the middle, or this tear that they're in the middle of right now? Do you think this is this is who they are.
I remember talking with some of the esteemed members of our media group that covers this team before the year. I was like, hey, like, how many wins do you think the Dodgers are going to be at? Because like they're not going to win 111.
Yeah.
That's just a ridiculous bar to set for any team. And I think the general, like, everybody was like 90, 91, 92, 95. Like, yeah. And so I sort of agreed with that assessment just because I thought it would take some time for this group to come together. And what I mean by that is you lose all those mainstays that everybody know, all the names that you see on jerseys when you go to Dodger Stadium still, right? The Turners, the Bellingers, the Jansons, like it's just been you're moving away from that wave, Corey Seager, over the past few years. And now you have this latest influx of talent, and they have to not only find themselves as big leaguers, but also find their comfort zone within that clubhouse and within the culture. And that takes time. Again, like we laud the maturity of these guys every time on the broadcast, whether it's James Outman or Vargas or Bush, insert young guy here. I mean, Michael Grove is somebody you've had on the podcast a ton of times and had some wonderful conversations with him, right? And you see and hear the maturity level.
Yeah.
That could be true, but it could still be the same big league learning curve that it is for every player. And it's not and it's not the same for every player. It's not linear. So that I was just trying to tell my Dodger family members and friends, like, hey, just be patient, but it's hard to do that when last year's team won 111, and whether folks want to admit it or not, I do believe that the activity down the coast in San Diego has, turned things up a little bit. And so, there's just a little bit more anxiousness for the Dodgers to look like the Dodgers again. But look, every season, that's the guys have been saying, right? Every year is different. Every team is different. It just takes time. They've had a really inconsistent start to the year in terms of health, all the trips to the paternity list. Like there are a lot of factors that I think people were, I wouldn't say ignoring, but they were jumping to the record. Oh gosh, we're still at 500. Oh God, we keep losing every other game. We haven't had a win streak and not winning series. It's like, well, there are a lot of reasons for that. So I've been trying to preach patience. We're still like not even to the middle of May yet. So this looks like a team, though, what we've seen the last couple of weeks, that they're starting to hit their stride. And I like how they've shown that. They're getting kind of punched early in series down at Petco and in Milwaukee. And it's like, oh, okay, is this where they kind of stumble back again? Here's the one step forward and then another step back. Sort of Dodgers we saw the first few weeks, and it's like, no, they respond and take the series. And so anyway, I'm not sweating, to put it simply.
Well, and I think, one of the things I've shared on this show is I think Dodger fans, if you compare this group, the 2023 team to the 2022 team, you will be disappointed and you'll be anxious and all that. Yeah. But if you compare it to the rest of the league, it's kind of like we're not used to having like a number 8 hitter we don't like. We're not used to having a number 5 starter that we're nervous about. We're not used to having like our 4th best arm in the bullpen be a guy who doesn't have a great ERA.
Yep.
And yet everybody else in the league is just used to that being that's the normal experience at best. Most teams don't like their number 6 hitter.
Totally. And I think you guys talked about it on a podcast earlier this year, because I do listen.
Love it.
You know that. But it's just like, even look at Will Smith as an individual. So he misses 2 weeks, right, with the concussion. But even before that, he was part of the World Baseball Classic team, and he didn't get a lot of run, right? So he's playing with JT. So it was going to take him some time to kind of get up to speed. That's why they weren't playing him every day early, and then you lose him for 2 weeks. And you just look at the lineup on paper, and with him not there, you're like, holy smokes, this is thin. And then you lose JD, right? Max isn't like, but if you start to get those guys back and feeling healthy, some of that stress about the bottom of the order is alleviated, because now it's like, okay, that's a hitter that you would expect to see at the number 8 spot in an order there, right? So I understand why fans feel a certain way, and they're starting to pit a little bit because they're not racking up wins, but it's like just give this team some time to get everybody healthy and kind of up to speed, and everything will be okay.
Yeah. Second best record in the National League as we sit here.
Like, again, I was wondering where I was going to go next and I figured out because you mentioned it. Like, you look league wide, like there are some other teams that everyone had put into that World Series contender category. They got problems right now. The Houston Astros don't look great. Like Jose Abreu and Alex Bregman are lost, and they have some injuries to that rotation that everyone felt confident in even after losing Justin Verlander. Now you're like, oh no, there are issues there. Atlanta just lost Kyle Wright and Max Fried for 2 months or whatever it is. The Mets have had a ton of problems. So it's like, for as much as you think the Dodgers have had issues out the gates, you look around the league and you're like, they haven't been alone in that, and they haven't been as bad as some other teams in certain cases.
Yeah, I think perspective on that front is super, super helpful. I mean, even the Padres, like if you're going to compare them to anyone, compare them to the team just down the coast who is currently, as we record, sitting at 500, who you just beat 2 out of 3 in their own ballpark. Use that as a measuring stick. You're 4 games up. There's nothing to be worried about.
And I mean, I'm just like, following what Bob Melvin says after some of these games. And it's like, I haven't heard, and he's right. One, what he's saying, and like, the urgency isn't there. The players know how I feel. And it's like, there hasn't been that sort of feel in my estimation around this club. So again, maintaining that perspective is difficult. I get it. It's hard, but you have to try and recenter yourself and look at things from, all around the circle before you make a full decision.
Totally. All right. Well, let's close out our time with some rapid fire questions, some baseball ones, some fun food ones, a story time one here. So we'll start. We're just talking about the Padres. This is a big debate on our show. Are the Padres a rival of the Dodgers? Is this a rivalry?
I think so. It's definitely doesn't have the same history and prestige as Dodgers Giants. But I think about it the same way people would put down the World Baseball Classic during the spring. Like, it's just the World Baseball Classic. It's not the Olympics. Well, I think some people would probably say that, like, after, the first couple Olympic games, like, what is this tournament? Who cares? In their toga robes and whatever. It's like it takes time to build that. The fact is this, though. There have been more and more conversations the last 3 years about Dodgers Padres, given the amount of talent, given the complex between the two cities, right? But just between Los Angeles and San Diego. So the ingredients are there for me. And I think like the pot has been stirred more and more. And for the Dodger fans who say that it isn't yet a rivalry, I want to see the Venn diagram of people who say that it's not, but the people who are also upset about what happened on the video board after game 1, right? Yeah. Because you can't say that and also be that. So, you know what I mean? I think it's heading in that direction, and I think that's great. I think it's great. So maybe that is like not the right thing to say but I'm the new guy. So
no,
whatever.
I'm with you. It's like I hate the Giants more than I hate the Padres for sure.
Correct.
There's enough room in my heart to dislike both of these teams very strongly. And right now, I would love to beat the Padres. Like I want the Astros to fail. I want the Giants to fail. Like these are all teams I'm actively rooting against. In my estimation, that's what a rivalry is. And so, if someone wants to say you can only have one rival and nobody else can be called a rival, like sure. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I tend to fall with you.
Yes, no, and I could see that perspective too. Like you have to pick one. Like okay, Cubs fans like, well, our one rival is the Cardinals. Yankee fans, our one rival is the Red Sox. Dodger fans, like 99.9% of them are going to say it's the Giants. I get it, but I'm with you. Like I grew up like a White Sox fan, as we talked about. I hated the Twins. I hated Cleveland. I hated you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Just the list gets
longer. That's how I viewed it.
Okay. All right. I'm curious. I don't know how far out you guys get your schedule, but do you have any games that you get to call in the coming, weeks or months that you've got circled as maybe a trip that you're excited about, a ballpark you're excited to visit, or a matchup that you're excited for? I mean, I know you don't know pitching matchups and any of that, which tends to like maybe be part of the cool factor here, but anything you're excited about personally?
That's a great question. I won't be on the White Sox series. Joe will have that one.
Okay.
So, which I think is just better for me and my father. I am slated to have a Dodgers Astros game.
Oh, nice.
So I think that series is at home. So I'm excited to see what the ballpark is like for that.
Lots of room for you to lay out.
And 100%. And I'm also curious to see where the Astros are at that point in time, like if they start to figure it out again. But that one certainly comes to mind. Yeah, let's just go. Yeah, I think that would be top of mind.
Love it. Okay, I mentioned that you worked for an AHL hockey team in Illinois, I believe. I once worked not on the broadcast, but for a Canadian Hockey League team in Oregon. Minor league hockey is like, it's a world of itself. Oh, yeah. Do you have a good story? Like, is there a good AHL story that you can remember? Maybe like a brawl that you got to broadcast or anything like that? I mean, probably lots.
I have a lot of great Rockford Ice Hogs stories. Man, I've told the frozen hot dog one quite a bit on other platforms. How like part of my responsibility as a broadcast intern was having to drive from Rockford to Chicago, which is like 90 minutes, in the team's PT Cruiser that had the Ice Hog logo. Like, think about it. So it's an angry pig with a hockey, like chewing on a hockey stick.
Love it.
Plastered all over the car. Drive down to Chicago, the Vienna Beef Factory, fill the PT Cruiser with boxes of frozen hot dogs, and then drive it back, and then just get stared at by children in minivans on the way. I've told that one before. I'll share a more broadcasty one. So it led to me getting suspended. There's a player who got into a fight the night before and had injured himself. And so we go into the coach's office the next day, and my boss, who was the lead broadcaster, was recording the pregame interview with the head coach. And the coach mentioned, hey, he hurt his shoulder. He's going to have surgery on it. So the coach said that. I'm in the room as the intern. I'm in charge of, pre-game shows, intermission shows, and post-game. I'm like, well, if he said it, it must be like fair information. So me being a dumbass, I tweeted it, and it like caught fire among Chicago beat writers, because the Ice Hogs are the AHL affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. And within like minutes, I got called down into the GM's office and was like, you got to take the tweet down. I was like, I'm not sure you understand how Twitter works. Like, it's already out. It's already out there. I'm thinking, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay. And he was like, where, I was just getting chewed out. And so, yeah, I got banned from the dressing room for a month because I was like, wait a second, like the coach said it, and we had to edit that part out of the interview. So it was like he never said it.
It's amazing.
But he said it. Yeah. And so anyway, I had to wear that one. So it was a good lesson early in making sure information was good for the public, or if it was privileged. So,
well, here I'll share one funny story, because I wasn't going to share this, but it lines up. So I wrote for a local newspaper in Portland. It was affiliated with the Portland Tribune, and the Portland Winterhawks were the WHL team that I used to work for, that I no longer worked for at the time. I was now working for a newspaper, occasionally covering Winterhawks games. Well, I had an interview set up. They had Seth Jones, who was in Portland, or was scheduled to come to Portland.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly where it was. So we were doing a big story because he was like projected to be the #1 pick, the whole deal. Oh, they had his rights. That's what it was. And so I get Seth Jones on the phone. It's like through the Olympic program, because Portland had his rights, but he hadn't decided if he was going to go to college or if he was going to come to Portland or what he was going to do. So we're just talking, I'm interviewing Seth Jones, and like casually, I'm like, hey, what's the timeline for a decision? He's like, oh, I'm actually signing with Portland. It's going to be announced tomorrow night that like I'm signing with the Winterhawks. I'm like, oh, okay. Cool. So we finished the interview, and I like call my boss, who's the editor of the newspaper. I'm like, hey, I just got this. He's like, well, post it. Like, go for it. Like, we're on the newspaper. We're on the journalism side. But the Winterhawks, I knew all the people at the Winterhawks, and they freaked because they had a whole plan set up to like unveil. This is like a massive news story. Like, he literally was going to be the #1 pick in the draft, was coming to Portland for like 4 months before getting drafted. and they were not used to being scooped. They're like, this is minor league hockey. Like, people are not coming here and like beating us to our own news stories. We release our own PR releases. So I'm getting MF'd on the phone by people from the organization, and it was just this hilarious. And it was unlike you. I didn't have to take it down because I was no longer employed. Like, my allegiances were not to the organization, but it's just funny how those things work, because it's the same thing. I was brand new in journalism, so I'm like, did I do something wrong? And my editor's like, no, this is what we do. Like, the Trailblazers don't call someone and MF them for breaking a news story. They're just used to it. The Winterhawks thought they could break this the next day. So anyways, minor league hockey and being a young journalist, it's a funny deal.
Oh my gosh. Minor league sports in general. Yeah. Minor league hockey, but yeah, those two crash course stories in journalism.
Totally.
And yeah,
it all matters what the name on the badge says. What company are you working for? It tells you whether or not you're allowed to say something or not say something.
So, but honestly, ever since then, I'm like, hey, like, is that on the record, off the record? Is that good? Like, I'll just wait. I don't want to get banned from the clubhouse.
Totally. Okay, couple food questions here. I mentioned to you before we came on, this is a large topic of conversation on our shows. As you know, there's lots of time to kill during baseball games, and so we end up talking about food. I'll start off with sort of an easy one. I remember on opening weekend when you were kind of introduced, you were in the booth, you brought snacks for the rest of the group. So I'm curious, if you're going to like a mini mart or a gas station and you're picking up 2 or 3 things, maybe it's a drink, maybe a couple snacks, like what's Steven Nelson grabbing at the 7-Eleven or the mini mart?
Okay, phenomenal question. I like mixing the sweet and salty, right? The sweet and savory. So sweet from Sour Patch one,
love it
for sure. Reese's Pieces or peanut butter cups. I don't discriminate. All of them work. And then from a savory standpoint, I've really gotten into the everything bagel pretzel chips.
Okay.
But just if a more basic level, sea salt and vinegar chips too. Okay. I'm a big snacker. Like chips and salsa is definitely a kryptonite of mine. Snacking in general. So it's a tough question to whittle down to one answer. So I'll just stop talking before.
What are you grabbing out of the fridge? Like what kind of drink? Are we like a Gatorade? Are we a soda, iced tea?
Yeah, I'm trying to just drink water, just avoid it. But plain ginger ale. I'm a big ginger ale guy, and it tastes different on planes. Yeah, it just does. And then also, this is a very niche. The Hawaiian Sun or Aloha, like the passion, the passion drinks. Yeah. Those are dangerous. Okay. And we're fully stocked, so it's bad.
I love it. Okay. If you're at Dodger Stadium, you're hungry, you get a Dodger dog. What's going on your Dodger dog?
You know, I haven't had a Dodger dog yet this year, which is it seems blasphemous, but
they changed the dog out a couple years ago, and so like it's almost now acceptable. Yeah, I don't think it's Farmer John anymore. I'm late on this one, but I'm pretty sure it's not. So it's like it's now almost acceptable to say you don't like Dodger dogs, which I'm not saying you have to say that, but like more people than ever are sort of anti-Dodger dog because I believe it's not Farmer John anymore.
I haven't had one in part because Joe Davis's diet is ridiculous and it makes me feel guilty and self-conscious about myself. Like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. I'll just smell it and that'll be good enough, Joe, because you know he's up working out at 4 a.m. like he's Wahlberg. I'm like, Joe, we give it a rest. But if I were to just go hot dog in general, like I'm mustard and a little bit of ketchup. Don't judge me. And onion. Sometimes relish. I'll switch it up. I don't like to do. It feels like a different experience if I add or subtract a condiment. So
no, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. We get one of our guys got crushed for saying he puts ketchup on a hot. I didn't realize putting ketchup on a hot dog was like what are we 12? That was like the comments below it. I didn't realize that was a hot take.
I think it's people trying too hard to create. It's the first takiness of the world we live in now. It's like, I have to find something to yell at you about. Ketchup. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. You moved back to Southern California. What was the restaurant or food item or something that you were most excited about? And if you want to throw a couple on here, feel free.
Honestly, it was like that first week. It was like we were just playing all the greatest hits. It was like In-N-Out, Habit Burger, Wahoo's, just mom's home cooking was, I mean, tacos, because they're in New York. There's like one good place in New York City that I found in my decade living there. It was in Chelsea Market.
Okay, you know what? I was just gonna say the best tacos. One of the best tacos I've ever had was in Chelsea Market's. The stadium. It was the same building that MLB Network was in, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Exactly. So yeah, it's Los Tacos #1, and then they created like a sister store that you walk through a hallway. It's Los Mariscos, and so that was like fish tacos, shrimp tacos. That was the only place I would eat tacos in New York. So just like you can go anywhere here, and it's like, this is great. So I like, just off the bat, like, as you can tell, I do not have like one set thing. I will try it all, and so it was nice just being home, being able to even just like a Del Taco bean burrito was like, I haven't had
That's great.
since it was, like a late night in college, so it was good to relive those experiences again. But it's just been, in seriousness, just being back home has really been just a huge lift, and like my heart's full every day, being around family and and working for the Dodgers. What's happening?
Love it. Well, hey, I said it. We're fortunate to have you, Steven. I'm very grateful for the time today. I've appreciated how kind you've been to us and the show over the last year or so. So keep up the great work. Congratulations on everything you've achieved. Like I said at the beginning, I mean, you may not place yourself in that group in the same way, but the Dodgers clearly placed you in that group intentionally. And so we're lucky to have you. Keep it up. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again later this year.
You're the best, Jeff. Anytime, I'm happy to talk with you guys. Though, and I want to say something before I leave. I was watching the intro, the pre-roll video. Okay, can we get your bobbleheads forearms workout?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's smart. That's smart on your part. I was like, damn, Jeff's got it.
I think it was honestly, I think it was like a Dave Roberts caricature that I found. Like, it was, I don't know if it's a Dave Roberts bobblehead or what, but I think it's Dave. Like, and I'm like, all right, I'll throw my head on that one. I'll give the other two guys, a different body type, but the bobblehead is way more jacked than me in real life. We'll put it that way.
No, see, no, you don't have to tell people that. Just, it was the actual photo.
Yeah, real. It's real.
In seriousness, appreciate you, brother, and can't wait till the next time we can chat.
Sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for watching. As always, subscribe, ring the notification bell here, and we will see you next time. Go Dodgers.